It's playoff prediction time! What's up, everybody? If this is your first time here, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Zach, but you all can call me the Tennessee Fanatic or the TN Fanatic for short. On this channel, I post reactions to my favorite team's games. And yes, these Tennessee Titans, they are one of those teams. So, you know right off the bat, I'm not a bandwagoner. But today is not about my Titans, no siree. Today is about all of the teams that made this year's NFL playoffs and the team that I believe is going to win the Lombardi at the end of it all. Now, I fully understand that I am entering dangerous waters here because no matter what I say, no matter who I pick, I'm going to face some amount of criticism. But I'm prepared for that. I've done a lot of mental preparation, a lot of emotional preparation, and if my predictions suck, well, so do yours. All right, let's get into this thing. We got the wild card first up. Let's talk about the Bears and Packers matchup. This one, to me, is probably the most intriguing matchup of all of the games on Wild Card Weekend. Because when you look at the Bears and the Packers and the two meetings that they had this year, like, they were really close games. The two games that the Packers and Bears played this year were both decided by a total of just 13 points, with each team winning by a touchdown at home. And in that first game, Nixon for Green Bay, he had that game-winning interception to get the win for the Packers. And then 2 weeks later, Caleb Williams with the play of the year found DJ Moore in the end zone, a 46-yard walk-off touchdown to win it for Chicago in overtime. According to ESPN, the Packers have a 56.1% chance to win, which to me, that's like, whoo, okay, that's pretty high for a 7 seed going up against a 2 seed. And, you know, I'm not saying that the Packers can't do this. Like, they are fully capable of getting this road upset, but I think a big key for them is Jordan Love. He has to protect the ball. I don't think he can afford turning the ball over in this game. But with that being said, the Bears this season had the best turnover differential this year, with plus 22, led by Pro Bowler, my former boy, Kevin Byard. So with the Bears defense having a lot of success this season in getting turnovers and knowing Love, knowing this Packers team, I'm going to give the edge to Chicago for the win. All right, next up, we got the Eagles taking on the 49ers. You know, I don't know what Brock Purdy and CMC got for Christmas, but, you know, I bet they got some great stuff because, man, have they carried this team. And, you know, I don't mean that as a knock to 49ers. I don't mean that at all. I don't mean that to their team or to their fans or anybody, but, like, we've seen it. Like, the 49ers have been hit with an injury bug hard this year. Brandon Ayuk, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner are just a few of the names that San Fran has lost due to injury during this season. And that had to be a factor in their devastating home loss to the Seahawks in that final regular season game. But hey, you know, the Niners, like, they're still in the playoffs. They still had a good season, facing a Philadelphia Eagles team that clearly is not the same one we saw go to the Super Bowl and win it last year. Especially on offense, under first-year offensive coordinator Kevin Patullo. The Eagles' offense has just been so inconsistent for a good amount of this year. Still managed to win the East because that division is garbage. And I know that you want to prepare for the playoffs, but just here's what I do not agree with Nick Sirianni, is that the Eagles, you know, they had a chance to get the 2 seed, but Sirianni, he chose to sit his starters. I mean, yes, I know, like, it is a risk putting Hurts out there and Barkley out there. You know, could they get hurt? We don't know. But if you have the chance, I feel like, if you have the opportunity to get a higher seed in the playoffs, I mean, wouldn't you take that? So for this game, do I take the injury-riddled visitors or the underperforming home team? So here's what I'll say. You know, the 49ers, they might be battered, but, you know, at least they're consistent. The Niners this year strung together 6 straight wins with averaging an NFL best 35.7 points per game in that span. If that kind of team shows up to play, I'm taking the Niners in this one. Brock Purdy, like, he's fully capable of putting this 49ers team on his shoulders because, like, he's done it. We've seen him do it this season. And I have heard that Trent Williams and Ricky Parcell, like, they might be coming back. So, that could only help the Niners' chances to win this one. So, yeah, I'm going to take the Niners to get the win on the road. All right, next up, we got the Panthers taking on the Rams. Now, similar to that Packers and Bears matchup, I think it's very interesting. The last time these two teams met, it was, don't get me wrong, an offensive clinic. Both quarterbacks had over 200 passing yards, multiple touchdowns. But the big stat, and this is what I think should concern Rams fans here, is that Matthew Stafford in that game, the Panthers turned him over not once, not twice, but 3 times and ended the Rams' 6-game winning streak. And for the fans watching this video going, oh, TN Fanatic, like that was just, that was just a bad game for Matthew Stafford. Okay, let's go back to a few weeks ago against Atlanta. What happened in that one? Stafford, he lost, the Rams lost, and Matthew, he threw 3 picks. And I know that the Panthers, they somehow, after losing to Tampa Bay, they find themselves in this position, in the playoffs. And I do know that, yeah, again, they are on a 2-game losing streak. But I just cannot look past the Panthers' defense and the success that they had against the Rams the last time that they met up. And I know for some fans, like I've seen some online predictions, some fans have the Rams going all the way to the Super Bowl, which I do respect. Could they win this game? Yes, but the matchup, I just think, like, that's just concerning to me about this matchup with the Panthers. Plus, what's the point of making a playoff prediction video if you're not going to make, like, a few bold picks, So, give me the Carolina Panthers to win and advance. Oh, boy, the keyboard warriors, I can already hear them typing now. But let's march on, baby. We got the Patriots taking on the Chargers. For this regular season, I feel like you cannot spell MVP without the M, and in this case, the M stands for May. Drake May. What a great year he had. 4,394 yards. He racked up 4th in the league. 31 touchdowns. That is 3rd best in the league, and a QBR of 77.2. The best QBR in the league this season. Now, Justin Herbert, he had a pretty good year too. 26 touchdowns. And I think if the Chargers, if they are to do this, if they are to go on the road and get this win, I feel like their O-line that has been battered this season, I feel like they gotta hold up so Herbert can make those plays, make those game-changing plays. But I feel like even if like McConkey or Allen or whoever, if they make a big-time play, if the Chargers get a good amount of points in this game, I have doubts if they can keep up with the Patriots offense. That's been great all year long. Patriots had the 3rd most total offensive yards this year with 379.4. Plus, Justin Herbert, he threw 13 interceptions this year. 4th most in the league, not too far behind the top 2 guys in that unfortunate category, Geno Smith and Tua. So with that possibly being a factor, and with the Patriots having just so many weapons on offense, so many ways that they can beat you, I'm going to give the edge to New England and give them the win. All right, next, we got the Jaguars taking on the Bills. The first time these teams have met in the postseason since 2017. Yeah, it's been a pretty long time. A lot has changed since then, including the Bills' dominant reign over the AFC East, but that has come to an end. With that being said, I feel like the Bills, they're still getting that bias from the media. It's still holding true. Bills are a slight favorite in this matchup at -1.5, which to me, I'm like, have we seen Josh Allen's road record in the playoffs? I do believe he is 0-4 in road playoff games. Just putting that out there. But I think a big reason why a lot of people think that the Bills are going to get this win is not just because of Josh Allen and what he can do, but also of the great play by James Cook. He led the league in rushing yards this year with 1,621 yards. And there's no doubt, I feel like, there's no doubt that Bills offensive coordinator Joe Brady, he's going to be looking to James Cook to have him make some big-time plays. And I think that's where the Jaguars are going to shut him down. Jaguars have one of the best run defenses in the league, and they've been one of the hottest teams in the league, winning 8 straight games. 2 of those were against my Titans, so do with that as you will. But Jacksonville has also allowed the least amount of total rushing yards this year with 85.6, and they allow an average of 19.8 points per game. And here's a stat, because I did some digging for this, folks. I promise. I did my research. I did everything I could to make the most accurate prediction that I can. And here is a stat that I found. So whenever the Bills scored 20 points or less this year, whenever that has happened, whenever their offense is not able to score like a lot of points, in this case, more than 20 points, whenever the Bills scored 20 points or less in a game, every single one of those times they have lost. And one of those games was against Miami. And it does sting to say this as a Titans fan, but I think the Jags defense, they are going to get Josh flustered early. And then from there, Lawrence, Etienne, and Washington, they are going to pick them apart. I'm going to take the Jags. All right, next up, we got the Steelers taking on the Texans. You know, talk about a nail-biter. What a way to end the regular season. Boswell missing his first PAT in, like, what feels like forever. And then the Ravens, that final drive, they go all the way down the field. Loop, he has a chance to win it, but he misses the field goal, and the Steelers make the playoffs. And for Steelers fans, for Aaron Rodgers fans, you know, I hope you enjoyed that. It was a great moment. With that being said, I do not see Pittsburgh winning this one. And yes, I know, Mike Tomlin on Monday night, he's borderline unstoppable. But, and you know, I'm going to really swallow my pride as I say this. The Texans had an impressive comeback season after the 0-3 starts. I believe they became the 7th team to make the playoffs after starting 0-3. And a lot of that success, the reason why the Texans are here, I feel like a lot of that can be attributed to their defense. They've been one of the best defenses overall in this league. Danielle Hunter, he led the team in sacks with 15, third most in the NFL. Will Anderson, the former boy from Alabama, not too far behind in that sack category with 12. So I believe that the Texans pass rush, like, they'll get to Rodgers early on. They will do what they have to do to prevent him from making plays. And we all know Aaron, he's not much of a scrambler. I feel like even with DK back in the lineup, I don't think Aaron is going to have time to find DK downfield. So I'm going to take the Texans to get this one done on defense. All right, on to the divisional round. For my matchup, we got the Bears taking on the Panthers. A battle of two number one overall picks right here. Heisman Trophy winners. And if memory serves, I believe that the Bears, they had that first overall pick in 2023. They traded it to Carolina. Panthers got Bryce Young. So the question is that decision going to haunt Bears fans in this game? I mentioned earlier how dominant the Bears defense has been this year, and no doubt at Soldier Field, in this environment, they are definitely going to look to rattle Bryce Young early. Now, the Bears' rush defense does concern me just a little bit, and I am concerned, like, can they shut down Rico Dowdle? Sorry if I got that name wrong, but I wanted to give Rico his due, who had a solid year for Carolina, over 1,000 rushing yards, and had a career-best 7 touchdowns. But if I am looking at this Bears' rush defense, you know, that is a group that does have to deal with Josh Jacobs, and Jahmyr Gibbs has to deal with both of those guys twice a year. So I think Caleb Williams, I think he'll make some plays down the stretch to clinch this win. I have the Bears advancing to the NFC Championship. All right, now we got the Seahawks taking on the 49ers. You know, not going to lie, with the Seahawks having that, like, impressive, that dominating win that in the last game of the regular season to beat San Francisco, to clinch that number 1 seed. If the Niners and Seahawks, if they meet again here in the divisional round, I feel like, you know, I will say this. I feel like the Niners, they might have that revenge factor on their side. And, you know, I remember that the Niners, they did this a number of years ago when they played the Packers. You know, Packers, they were the number 1 seed. That was when Rodgers was still with the team. And San Fran, they came in there. It was snowy, but the Niners, they got it done on the road to beat Green Bay. And here, they're going back to the West Coast to play the Seahawks. The last time that those teams played at Lumen Field, the Niners won. Granted, they were a lot healthier back then, but just here is my concern with the Seahawks. And it's not... like, you know, it has everything to do with the fact that they are the number 1 seed. It's not a coincidence that all these great teams from the NFC who get that number 1 seed, they either don't make the Super Bowl or they're one and done. Now, if the Seahawks, they want to get to the Super Bowl, they have to show up. They have to be that team that we've seen that we've seen all season long. They had the #1 scoring defense in the league for a reason, allowing a total of 13 points over their last 2 games. Jackson Smith and Jigba, he's got to have a big day. Best receiving yards producer in the league. But I feel like a big part of whether the Seahawks win or lose is going to have to depend, of course, at Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold, he's got to be the guy. He's got to look like the guy that we've seen for these past 2 years. But I do question if this moment for Sam Darnold is too big. In that playoff game last year when the Vikings played the Rams, Darnold, he was 25 for 40 and had a completion percentage of 62.5, and the Vikings lost badly, 27-9. And Sam has thrown the 3rd most interceptions this year with 14. So you know what? Let's have some fun, baby. I'm going to take the Niners to get the win over the Seahawks and advance to the NFC Championship. Oh boy, I can hear it already. Seahawks fans telling me how much of an idiot that I am. And yeah, I know, like this sounds crazy, but let me just say this, if this game is close, like if you need one final game-winning drive in the playoffs, who would you rather take? The quarterback that ever since he got to the league, ever since he got to the 49ers, all he's done is win, who's been to the Super Bowl? Or do you pick the guy who this will be just his 2nd playoff game? I rest my case. All right, for the next divisional matchup, I got the Patriots taking on the Jaguars. Now, if this match happens, folks, expect some fireworks right here. Both quarterbacks, Drake May and Trevor Lawrence, they were top 5 in passing touchdowns this year. Both offenses were top 10 in points per game. But I question if Drake May can get the job done against this team, against a really good Jaguars team on both sides of the ball. The Patriots this year had the lowest strength of schedule in the league. They played just 3 games against teams with winning games this season and lost 2 of them against Pittsburgh and Buffalo. And they did blow a 21-point lead to lose that Bills game at home. And if history serves, Lawrence, when he was in that playoff game against the Chargers, they had to overcome a 27-point deficit, and they did to win that game. Again, I might be making some Titans fans mad here, but I'm going to call it how I see it. Because I feel like even if the Patriots get out to a big lead, even if their offense is clicking, I feel like they might do what they did in that Bills game. They are going to sit back. They are going to be comfortable. And then that's when Lawrence is going to pick them apart. From there, I think the playoff inexperience of Drake May is going to show. He's going to try to make one too many big-time plays, and that's when the Jags defense, that's when they can take over. Jaguars defense had one of the best turnover differentials in the league. They got 22 interceptions this year. And again, they've been red hot. The Jaguars have not lost a game since November 9th. And Trevor Lawrence, during that span, he leads the league in total touchdowns. So whether it's an offensive shootout or it's a comeback game, unfortunately, I got the Jags advancing to the AFC Championship. Hey, don't say I'm biased against my AFC South rivals. And by the way, I said regular season MVP, not playoff MVP. There's a difference. All right, final divisional matchup. We got the Broncos taking on the Texans. For this matchup, I'm sure a lot of fans, they would love to see a battle between CJ Stroud and Bo Nix in the playoffs. I don't think that's going to happen here. I don't think we're going to see much offense. I think this is going to be a defensive affair. The Texans and the Broncos, they were the 2 best teams this year in defensive yards allowed, and the Broncos defense overall had racked up 68 sacks this year. Most in the league. That's the best sack differential as well in the league with plus 45. The Texans secondary has also been very great. They were tied for the 3rd most interceptions this year with 19. But in their last matchup, the Broncos, they got a last-second field goal to win it. And the Broncos, if there's one thing that we've learned this year from Denver, they know how to come back. They know how to overcome a deficit. So even if Houston's offense, even if they find more rhythm in this game, no lead is ever safe when you're playing these Broncos. Just ask Jackson Dart. So I'm going to take Denver to advance to the AFC Championship. All right, conference championships. I got the Bears taking on the 49ers. You know what? Who would object to these two being the last two teams to battle it out in the NFC for a chance to go to the Super Bowl. Their Week 17 matchup was absolute cinema. Both quarterbacks had over 300 passing yards, multiple touchdowns. Burden and Loveland, they had great games for Chicago. CMC had 140 rushing yards for San Fran. But as stereotypical as this sounds, I think that this game is going to come down to the defenses. In their last matchup, the 49ers defense, they did not perform well in this game. But, they got that final game-winning stop. I mean, Caleb Williams, he was 2 yards away from winning this game. Here's what I'll say. If Bears defensive coordinator Dennis Allen, if he makes those necessary adjustments, if he gets more pass rush on Brock Purdy, which I think the Bears, they only registered 1 sack in that entire game. If they also prevent Brock Purdy from making deep throws downfield, if they make those necessary adjustments, I like the Bears to win this game and advance to the Super Bowl. Chicago this year recorded 6 wins. 6 wins this year when trailing in the final 2 minutes. So the Bears, they know how to come back. And they know how to come back quick. And plus, Kyle Shanahan, if history shows, he's not known for maintaining a lead. And, fans will say what they will about Caleb Williams. Is he capable of doing this? Is he capable of winning big-time games like this? We will find out. But what I will say about Caleb Williams is that as of recently, he has been really smart with the ball, and he has protected it as well. Disregarding that last Lions game of the season, because, who cares about that? Caleb Williams, in his last 3 games before that, he had over 240 passing yards in each of those games, multiple touchdowns, and 0 picks in all 3 of those games. And as I mentioned earlier, 2 of those games were against the Packers and the 49ers. And the Bears offense as a whole, they've also protected the ball well. The Bears offense had the fewest giveaways in the league. So you know what? I feel like 2 yards is not going to be enough to save the 49ers this time. I'm taking the Bears to win and advance to the Super Bowl. All right, AFC Championship. Broncos taking on the Jaguars. Do I dare take Jacksonville to go to the Super Bowl? Because here's what I'll say. The last time these two teams played at Mile High, the Jaguars won big. They won 34-20. Lawrence had 279 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, and no picks. The Broncos defense had no answers for him in that game. If it's Jags and Broncos, if they are the last 2 teams standing in the AFC, who's to say that the Jaguars can't do what they did in their last meeting against Denver in Week 16? And I've laid out a lot of stats about these 2 teams. They're both great teams, and both of them are very capable of making it to this point in the AFC Championship. I'm sorry, I can't do it. I gotta take Denver in this one. Look, I know for Jaguars fans, hopefully they appreciate me saying that their team is getting to the AFC Championship, but no. Because look, folks, I gotta think about this. This could be borderline blasphemy for Titans fans if I sit in this seat with a Titans shirt, Titans helmet right here, and Titans stuff in the background and say that the Jaguars are going to the Super Bowl. I'm sorry, I cannot do it. I'm going to pick the Broncos here. Yes, this is an emotional pick, but I'm going to put my trust in you, Bo Nix and Sean Payton. You all better adjust. You all better get this right and beat the Jaguars or whoever and make the Super Bowl. And with that, we have it. The Super Bowl matchup that I think is going to take place is the Broncos versus the Bears. Now, I feel like I've said a lot. I feel like a lot has been said about both of these teams. I've laid it out. Both of these offenses are great. Both teams have top-tier defenses. And there could be, there's a lot of stories here. A lot of stories could take place in this Super Bowl. Bo Nix and Caleb Williams facing off once again, this time in the pros and on the biggest stage in all of sports, the Super Bowl. You also got Sean Payton taking on his former assistant, Dennis Allen. To put it simply, actually, I think this is going to be more of a matchup of the Bears offense versus the Broncos defense. So when it's laid out like that, I think I got my pick. All right, folks, so the team that I believe is going to hoist the Lombardi Trophy is, drumroll, the Denver Broncos. Here's why. I feel like just Denver's defense, they can neutralize an offense in so many ways. Nick Menino leading the pass rush with 14 sacks this year, 5th most in the league. Broncos also have a great secondary led by the reigning Defensive Player of the Year, Pat Surtain. And the Broncos defense as a whole, they have been playing amazing. They are elite, and this year they've allowed an average of just 18.3 points per game. Not only do they have the players, but they got the championship experience of head coach Sean Payton. He's been in the Super Bowl. He's won it. So I believe Payton, he's going to outwit his former assistant, and with the elite connection of Knicks to Sutton, and with Denver's defense playing great, I gotta pick the Broncos to win the Lombardi Trophy. But fans, that's gonna do it for this playoff prediction video. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know how much you disagree with me in the comments. Or if you agree, let me know that as well. But once again, fans, that's gonna do it here. Thank you all so much for watching. If you all enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, and you can join our Fanatic Army. And a hearty salutes to all of you as always, and I hope that all of you have a fantastic day.